started making those little angels that I do, and I made 100 of them to give away to people at the hospital and stuff like that. And so we had 33 people standing in my hospital room as my neurosurgeon came in to take me out, and I had been giving everybody angels, angels, angels. So I have given away 2,700 of them now. I had also tatted a brain for him, one of Martha S.'s brains, her old pattern as a brain. And I asked him, I said, I want you to tell me what this is. And he turned it around and he said, well, and he says, is it a brain? I said, yes, I just wanted to make sure you knew what you were going to look at when you opened my head up. So I made 85 more angels, and the nurse was still standing at the door as I was leaving, waiting for her angel to be finished. So.
When I was a little girl, about 9 years old, my grandmother had given me a copy of the Coates and Clark's Learn How book, and I learned how to do everything in it except for the very last section, which was tatting. My dear father searched high and low for a tatting shuttle. Couldn't find one. Evidently asked some guys he worked with at the post office if they knew where he could get one. And a guy said, you can go to this store in Marable and they have them. So my father drove 45 minutes to a store in Marable and got a tatting shuttle for a 9-year-old kid that had no clue how to tat, and I've been using it ever since and still have it, and God bless him for doing that, and I wish he could see all of this going on.
Hi, my name's Anita Berry. I have been shuttle tatting for 23 years. I live in Virginia. It's the most economical and mobile craft skill that I have known. The funniest story on tatting, when I learned, the little lady that taught me to tat. I sat right next to her, elbow to elbow, and she did this. And I looked at her, and I said, show me again. And she said, oh, okay. And I'm going, oh my gosh. Well, from then on, I somehow followed every motion she made and learned to tat. And it was the most wonderful gift that she gave me, was the ability to enjoy this art.
When you take a class and you don't finish, it kind of upsets you because you're trying to get the technique. So if we're teaching techniques, we want you to keep trying that technique. I have lots of teachers, like my favorite teacher to teach split rings, Karen Bavar. I call her a split ring queen. Self-closing mock rings, it was Randy House. I've learned a lot from Anita Berry in all sorts of spectrums. Anitra Stone, she likes wildlife, so she does a lot of wildlife. Martha S., I learned block tatting from Martha a couple years ago. So, and I like her patterns, and then how to use buttons, Janie Verall. We've switched the schedule around enough to where people can finish the classes. They can finish the project in there. And if they're not finished, they're at least close enough. I learned in 2000 on a dare. We went to a leisure arts program, and my aunt and my cousin had already chosen their classes, and you couldn't take the same classes. And then my sisters were informed that they needed to take certain classes. Well, the only thing left was tatting. So Linda Davies taught me how to tat. I took it from her. 2 months later, I was getting really frustrated because I didn't understand why my bobbin wouldn't move. I had an arrow shuttle. I was squeezing it so tight. So when I learned clover shuttles, I'm like, oh, let me try this shuttle. I figured it out because it doesn't squeeze. There's a post in the middle. Now I tat with arrows.
All right, well, my name is Martha S., and I want to talk about a story my mother used to tell me about her granny and tatting. And so her story was when she was a little bitty girl, about 4 years old, her granny had this beautiful tatting shuttle. So she told her if she could learn how to tat, she could have that shuttle. But she was only 4 years old, and she couldn't get it. And it was a sunny day outside, and she had things to do, and so she couldn't get it. She didn't learn how to tat, and she didn't get the pretty shuttle. Somewhere out there is a shuttle that should have been mine. So in my uncle's house, that was the old family farmhouse, they found that in the drawer of what had been the sewing table. So I was the only one who tatted, so my aunt gave me the shuttle. Yay.
Well,
I like the I like the arrows and the air lights, or airlets, however you say it, because I like bobbin shuttles and I like having a hook on the end. The only thing with the bobbin shuttles is, to me, these are hard. Size 10 thread is hard on these, for me, for some reason. So if I'm doing size 10 thread, then I pull out the moonlights, so I still have the hook on the end.
I'm Melinda Crenshaw. I've been tatting since 2009. Was taught by the Palmetto Tatters Guild and have been enjoying it ever since. But it was something I wanted to do for a long time. When I was growing up, I did a lot of crafts, needlepoint, cross-stitching, and things like that with my mom, and she taught me those kind of things. And I think that's where I learned about tatting, but I never had seen my mom tat or anything. It was something we had just talked about. And so she passed away when I was fairly young, and I'd spent years trying to learn how to tat and couldn't figure it out. I tried videos, things like that, and I was always getting it backward. And I finally learned how to tat, and I went to show my older sister. And she pulled out of her stash of things that she had been given by my mom a tatted necklace that was done in white with gold beads. And her story and what she told me when she did it was that Mom had tried to do the tatting and she had succeeded in that. And typically my mom likes to do one for all of her girls. She had 3 daughters and a son. But that, she said, that was going to be her first and her last tatting because it was way too hard. I've been here every year since I started learning to tat. I just love the fellowship, and I love being able to talk to different people and their experiences and learn from people who've just been doing it for so long. And there's so many impressive teachers and different styles of teachers and different personalities that I enjoy. But as I've learned to sort of take some of my mistakes and make them into other things, and that's been fun to do. I learned at first to tat with a clover in my fingers because when I initially was trying to learn by myself, I just had the clover shuttles. But then when I went to the Palmetto Tatters Guild, they had the little kits, and they have the 2 strings. You have 2 different colors, contrasting colors, to learn to do the chain, and so they just give you the 1 clover shuttle. So that was the first time I was real successful at it.
I had a maiden great-great aunt who, when she was 3, was kicked in the head by a mule. And she went to school in Arkansas for the deaf, and the nuns there taught her to tat. She had a detach-a-spool patent pending shuttle, and to my knowledge, the only pieces of her tatting that survived was a luncheon cloth that had some embroidery and a pink hen and chicks edging, and a baby's sheet and pillowcase that had white rings only edging attached that I used as a baby, as an infant. So after she passed away, I was about 12 years old, and we were cleaning out her little 1-bedroom house going through her sewing stuff, and my mother found her shuttle and said, I remember seeing Aunt Annie do this, but I don't know how she did it, and you're the only one in the family smart enough to figure out how to use it. So that was more than 50 years ago. And I used an old Learn To Coats book. Probably still have it in my stash someplace. And I must have a gold medal in the frustrated shuttle toss because it did really well to flip the first half of the stitch. But the instructions on doing the second half were not clear. It just says do the opposite. Well, what does the opposite mean? There wasn't even a drawing. But that's how I learned to tat. Taught myself completely. When my father was dying, I had taken a shuttle and some thread with me. It became my way of dealing with waiting in the hospital and the hours. And it was a calming effect. It's like having a rosary or saying a mantra. It was a calming effect. There are times I like the challenge of learning a new technique. Something like Randy and Gary Houtz's alternate thread method. I just wish I had the larger hands so that I had a good working space. And times that I'll just pick up one of my favorite patterns and just have quiet time. In our scholarship funding, through the worldwide tatting community, and particularly with Georgia Science's help, we've raised over $80,000 in scholarship monies that we've given out. We can usually give out an average of 15 two-day scholarships for people to attend our event.
There was an introduction to my shuttle tatting and needle tatting videos that I did a few years back. And the words I spoke then are dear to my heart, really. I sat at a table like this and I invited the audience through that camera to come in and join me and sit down like it was at the kitchen table, have a cup of tea and learn to tat at the same time. And I told them if they're completely new to this kind of a world, they've chosen a project, an art, a style of lace making that's been known for centuries and will go on for centuries and will make them the center of attraction everywhere they sit. Even at the doctor's office, in the waiting line at the grocery store, goodness knows. People will be attracted to it and want to know what you're doing. Coming to Tat Days gives you real interaction with real people. And this friendship that we build up here, it's lasted for years and years and years. What is it, 16, 17 years that we've got? And every time we have new people coming. That nice little Dodie was here and Cynthia was here. And this is a whole new world for them. It's a world that's going to bring them pleasure, friendship, reasons to travel, meet people. And this is an art that is so affordable. We have a little shuttle or a needle and some thread, and you can put it all right in your pocket. But after I got out of the Army in '78, we were living in California. There was a lovely needle workshop there. And my buddy from the Army, Audrey, she came to visit. Now, she was the one who had sewed my wedding gown when we got married over there in Tokyo, in Japan. So she liked needlework. I took her down to that store. Oh, we oohed and we awed and we oohed and we awed. And we went home. And a few days later in the mail, after she'd gotten home, she sent me a note saying that she had arranged a birthday present for me. She had noticed a sign in there in that store that said free tatting lessons and signed me up for it. I mean, I could literally have danced a jig. Time came around. I was one of 8 people. There was a little teeny bopper sitting next to me and a couple older ladies over here. And our teacher was actually a famous person. Her name was Vera Klopfenberg. She was so good, a master tatter, that she did restoration work for museums. So I was fired up with enthusiasm, okay? So she took out her little tool, the shuttle like that, and she went to the head of the table. And she just started to tat, back and forth, back and forth, back. We were watching her hands and watching her hands, but she didn't slow down. She didn't show us how to wind a shuttle, how the thread moved, what our fingers were supposed to do. But all of a sudden, that little teeny bopper girl next to me said, "Oh, I got it." And she was able to figure out how to flip the stitch. And she taught me, and I taught the next lady, and then by the end of the 4th hours, we were all doing at least our first stitches. That just stays with me. I didn't start teaching, though, till, 1986 that was. 1985, Charles Kuralt on the road. I saw that episode where he was in Central Illinois, and he said, when these 3 little old ladies that he interviewed die, well, Daddy's going to be dead. Well, I was living in Alaska then, so I went to Western Union and I sent him a telegram, which was expensive in those days. I told him Taddin was alive and well and living in Alaska. The next year I started tatting, started being a judge at the Alaska State Fair, just one of the 3, just the one closest to Anchorage, and kept going with that. And by the time I left Alaska, I had taught over 500 students to tat. We came down to Illinois, and I just keep on tatting, but it doesn't matter how many. It's just, who's the next one? Who's the next one? We've got to get people enjoying this stuff the way I enjoy it. And I even taught at the Idaho Institute of Correction for Young Men. Now those were some surprised young men. The officer who had brought me into the prison explained to them, "Oh, boy, we're going to have a lesson on tatting. Boys, sit down, get your places." And their smiles were so wide, so wide. Tatting, tatting. The first thing I had to do was say, "Boys, tatting is a form of lace making. We are not going to learn to tattoo today." Well, that went over with a bang, but they did get into it. It was fun. Something different in their day. And one young man got it. And he was trying it and trying it and trying it, and he would not let me go until he'd gotten to have, actually it was a little braid down this far. We got a knot on it. It was just enough he could tie around the wrist, and he said, "I'm going to give this to my daughter. And then later I'm going to show her how to do this." Oh, my little heart just kind of pity-patted, you know. It's a humanizing thing. It's something we can all share. I remember way back in, 1980, 1985? The only book was the Rebecca Jones, the complete book of tatting, plus that infamous green book, and there was Aunt Ellen's book of tatting, white cover with a blue doily thing on the front of it. And that's all. And you went to the old work baskets and looked for patterns, and old magazines, old newspapers, looking for anything that we could tat. And then slowly but surely we had more books coming out and more books coming out and more styles of tatting. Barbara Foster's needle tatting became popular, and Ed and Selma Moran. Selma was going blind. So Ed helped her invent a style of tatting that she could do with her diminished eyesight. Funny thing about that, it was a style of needle tatting. And the first tatting needles that they had made were produced by a dental tool manufacturer. Now, who knew that? Every day I get up and I have my tea with my husband, and then I think about what will we do for tatting today. I write a little bit, and I've written some books, and I write a newsletter column, and then I'm in my 20th year, well 19th year actually this year. It'll be 20 in 2019 November, teaching the online tatting class. I could go on and talk about tatting for literally days. But the best thing about it is being with tatters and helping out. enjoying friendship.